Beardy and the Beast, the second wall.
Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba. This is placeholder intro song.
Welcome to the second wall, binge-free zone where we look at a series and discuss it in small chunks. This time we are looking at Joss Whedon's sci-fi classic, Firefly. We can be found on most podcast and social media platforms, a full list of which can be found at beardyandthebeast.com. Please watch the episode and then join Drew and I in the mess as we explore the verse.
Well, I'll tell you what.
What?
Vin Diesel would be very disappointed with Jayne.
You know, so obviously we've talked a lot about the characters,
Mm-hmm.
and we're saying is like where Jayne is, he actually seemed more favorable to them up until this point, to the Tams.
Yep.
And I can make it mostly work, and I need to make an assumption that there's either something done slightly wrong with the acting or they didn't quite realize how to play it. I think Jayne turning the Tams in wasn't about the money. I think you used that as an excuse for everything. But I think I'm choosing to interpret that he was doing it to protect the crew and just happened to get paid.
We have two. My perspective is very conspiratorial, so I'm gonna ride with you on this.
All right.
Because I like where this is going. It's not something that I expressly thought of, but it makes sense, especially the ending.
Mm-hmm.
That don't tell him what I did. Like he's actually concerned with the crew and even Mal. So what you're indicating is just the pure existence of them being around is inhibiting and dangerous to what Jayne thinks of as family.
Yeah. And I'm so I do think there needs to be a tweak in the way the story was presented.
Mm.
But I'll get to that in a second. So my big points for this is, again, a lot of the last couple episodes we've seen is like, no, he is treating them as part of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have an issue with Simon, like other than him being the fancy boy from the Corps. But River attacked him for unknown reasons, and straight up says, "It's like, what are you gonna do when she goes into Kaylee's room instead?"
Yeah, yeah.
Right,
And I have no doubt that Jayne would, like take a bullet for Kaylee.
Yeah.
Like that's an actual concern I could see.
Yeah. So we have that, and so we go in. I do think he thinks it was a good plan for the getting all the meds.
Mm-hmm.
Again, strong world building. Meds, most valuable thing you can get.
Well, considering like he would have played it so they still got the payout.
Yeah. And then I think he was all in on turning them in. And then two things happened in the hospital.
Hmm.
One, the way River and Simon, when River's going, it's like, no, you need to save this person. He's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And Simon does. And then when he gets the breakdown of what's happening with River.
Yeah, I marked that down too. Specifically, that Jayne gained respect for Simon in that moment where he watched him save that man's life, and also was able to gain sympathy for River, knowing just what kind of damage the government did.
Yeah. And here's where I would have made the change.
Mm.
So everything up until that point plays exactly as it does. The only thing that they needed to change was not have Jayne go to the pickup point. Have them intercept them. You still have the same conflicts, and it's just enough to show what I think they were trying to show was Jayne was starting to become sympathetic and just make that slight change.
Mm-hmm. So it's only now that you mentioned that it's a pickup point that I've observed that as the pickup point.
Hmm.
The context that I viewed it at, and is incorrect given the information that you've expressed, is that I thought they were intercepted.
Hmm.
That he gained sympathy for River, and the action was like, oh shit, we need to get out of here because those people are coming.
Yeah.
And they were intercepted, in course. But I think, given the way that you stated it, I might be incorrect in that assumption.
Yeah. It's a little hard to tell it. It's the idea of leaving that little bit early, and Simon and River didn't seem to quite understand the direction.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I'm willing to say that maybe this is what I'm saying is like it needs to be something a little bit clearer either in the writing or the acting. Because you're right, maybe it was he was leaving early to try to beat them before the pickup, which is a possibility as well.
Yeah.
It's just not
Expressed well.
it's not expressed well. And I think that's really my biggest issue with this episode overall.
It's the muddiest thing, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
So you remember previously, like in recording time, it's been a while since we last had a discussion about this, but we were talking about how River has no filter and is hyper observant.
Yes.
That it's not a power. It's that her observational skills and intuition based on all the micro patterns allows her to sort things out subconsciously, but she doesn't know how to express them.
Yeah.
So here's my tinfoil hat about the whole thing.
All right.
From the beginning of the episode, and probably before they even step foot on Ariel, maybe not the government intervention, but at least the hospital heist was all River's plan.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
I think that she set a series of events in motion. I think strategically, Jayne was the appropriate person for her to like attack, because he would be, out of anyone in the crew, he's probably the one that underestimates her the most, and is also not someone like, and is someone who's antagonistic to them, but hasn't shown any adversity, essentially. But she knows full well that Simon understands the hospital, understands the layout, will do anything for her, and that she needs more assistance than what she's receiving. So essentially, I think she attacked him on purpose for the pure fact to initiate the whole chain of events that occurred.
So I see your tinfoil hat conspiracy, but while I am willing to say that River helped Simon with this plan a lot more than we actually see, I do not believe that she was doing that to set the events in motion.
You don't think so?
And the reason for that is it's something we've talked about before. There's the whole Blue Sun Corporation thing that's throughout. Jayne's wearing a Blue Sun shirt.
Okay.
So I honestly think it was she's getting worse. And that if it's I'm assuming there's some sort of subconscious trigger there for things that we will likely see in the future. um, I think that she couldn't stop that. It started with like the taking all the labels off the cans and everything. I think that this was supposed to be an escalation of that point.
I see what you're saying. See, I still, in that same manner, though, I do see it as like her attacking Jayne as a cry for help, knowing in the manner of which Simon would react based on her actions.
Yeah, I do agree it's a cry for help. If it's that much sending it into that type of premeditation, for lack of a better term.
Well,
I don't
it's
think that's
subconscious premeditation. It'd be in the same vein as her pseudo psychicness.
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I could kind of see that. It's a little hard to say because we haven't, like, either with your tinfoil hat conspiracy or even mine, where it's saying like she might have actually helped with the planning and somewhat.
Mm.
I think part of the issue is we haven't seen any her come up with a plan or anything like that. Like, everything is like, granted, there's the instinctual aspect, which I think is what you're
Yeah. My
kind of
theory is
leaning
there's
towards.
no cognizant plan. Like, she didn't
Yeah.
write something down.
Yeah, it's just
She knew that if she rolled a marble in a certain direction, it would hit the domino and the certain pieces would fall, right?
yeah. I think the part that's making it a little hard to click for me is I can't really think of seeing any other indications of that type of from her.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like growing from a.
yeah.
There's always a first occurrence of something.
Yeah.
So not everything can be based on historical context, but I don't see it as being a far leap
No.
from what are her powers now. I'm not saying that it is the case. I'm just making an argument for it.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's not a far leap. I think if that was excuse me, if that was the intention, I think I would have liked to see little things happening like that earlier. Like, even if it's just, just having her actions in some way kick off the plot a bit more.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like on a 20th watch of the series, knowing that this is in your brain, you might start seeing it next time, right?
Yeah. That is true.
One thing to what I think reinforces the hyper observational thing, not my tinfoil hat theory.
Yeah.
Is when Jayne came in after like confirming the pickup and the confirming the operation with the police.
Mm-hmm.
River wakes up and says "copper for a kiss."
Yeah.
Which is either a reference to Judas or a reference to prostitution.
Mm-hmm.
Doing anything for money. So
Either way.
Yeah, either way it works out the same. And I thought it was like, yeah, that's a little check on me and Dev's theory. That's another like, yeah.
Yeah. That was definitely a good part. Like, and just Jayne's reaction to it too, like having no idea how to. I mean, granted, that's just a hard thing to figure out how you're going to react to anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But when you tie it into everything else that's happening, I think that might have gotten missed on Jayne. I don't think it would have gotten missed on the other crew members.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I don't think it would have been missed by Book or Mel, but
Yeah.
a few others would have accepted it as something like silly or playful.
Yeah. Anara would have got it.
I don't know about that.
What? Ties to prostitution?
She might not take it that way because she's not a prostitute.
That's true. She's not a prostitute. But
um,
with the amount that Mal calls her one, she might make that connection.
I think she's smart enough, but we haven't seen enough of their relationship to know how seriously she takes the things that River says as being authentic.
That's fair.
Um, so it's essentially like she has the intellectual prowess to put it together, but it depends on the relationship.
Yeah.
I prefer my tinfoil hat theory over your blue sun theory, but the blue sun trigger also does make sense.
Mm.
Especially when we're talking just blanket colors.
Yeah.
Because after she slashes Jayne, she says he looks better in red.
Yeah.
Which can feed into my tinfoil hat theory, but is also like a contrasting color to blue in such a way that like it fits to Blue Sun Triggers and the Blue Sun Corporation.
Mm.
I remember correctly, there's only been like 2 actual references to that, and both of them have been very like, this is going to be a second or third season kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is sad because it would have been a great storyline to follow.
I agree. I think it's one of these things that adds that, because we're already a space western. Let's throw in a little bit of dystopian nightmare in there as well, and mega corporations.
Yeah.
Why not? So, yeah, your tinfoil hat theory does amuse me. It would be something it does amuse me. It would be. I mean, we said that a lot of times we've been discussing. It's like, yep, on our 20th watch through. Now here's a bunch of other things we're going to look for.
Well, I tell you what, I've never been a diehard River fan. I was watching Jayne, but watching the show critically, it's far less washed now. Getting respect for Simon, but I am liking River more.
Yeah.
If I remember in the past, I didn't like River in the series, but I liked River in the movie. So that was very contrasting for me. But I'm getting a lot, especially in the second half of the Firefly. Like it's really coming together.
Yeah.
It's quite clear. Was it Summer?
Yeah, Summer Glau.
Yeah, that she is well within the head of River.
Yeah.
Because all the problems I had with her acting and portrayal were gone in like, what, episode 3 or 4?
Yeah.
And I've been compliments ever since.
Yeah. Yeah, because the first episode in particular was
rough.
Yeah, there was a little bit too much Sharoning, as we said. But you just realize how little that's needed, and you can. I don't know. There's something that's always intrigued me about the character, and I think it's added by the fact that, spoiler alert, we don't get near as many answers as we'd like to have because
in the expanded universe, which
I'm just upset that no one's going to be able to see you like push up your glasses as well in the expanded universe.
Actually, I'm saving the Firefly comics because I might do a rewatch because the Firefly comics, at least one of the longer running series, is actually integrated and weaves within the show.
Okay.
So like between episodes for a few issues. I did ahead of time check out Book's comic. So I know his history. I'll probably leave that for the last episode.
All right.
That we discussed, because that's the one with the dude, right? Yeah. So I'll save it for the last episode.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it'll matter for the movie per se.
Mm.
But I don't want to ruin the rest, right?
Yeah.
Don't want to taint my viewing because it very much is the show is presented and not the expanded universe.
Yeah. Well, it's a shame you mentioned the, like, tainting of books backstory, because it makes it a little more difficult for me to kind of theory craft on the fact that he wasn't going anywhere near a core world.
Oh yeah, I guess I kind of ruined that. But I mean, I cannot confirm nor deny.
The biggest thing that came across to me, it's like, as the public face that he tries to put on, without all of the questions that we're raising around him, he's the second most respectable member on that crew, next to Inara, as far as we can see. We know he's got pull with the Alliance somehow.
Yeah.
So immediately my mind goes like, why did you find a reason to not be at the core worlds? You probably could have been useful there one way or another. You could have been the person who actually left the ship to go find a job or something.
Well, I think they presented him as leaving the core worlds with the. This is how they presented him, leaving the core worlds with a mission, with actual like religious intentions.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's because he's running for something or he does not want to be in the core worlds for some reason, or he actually has something altruistic that he's attempting to do in the border worlds. They haven't expressed, right?
Yeah. So there's another reason why I think there was something more to him not being on the ship, as opposed to just. I'm assuming something else is happening here. Because again, if there's two people that I wouldn't want to bring anywhere near the core worlds, and if you already have Book, who's got a good relationship with them, setting down somewhere else for a week or two, is there a reason that we can't be that Simon and River aren't there? So it's very much it's a lot of reading between lines, possibly making up some. I can't say for certain. It's just
even knowing a little bit more, like I do. I don't see anything in this episode as to why he wasn't on the ship more than he was at the Abbey that they expressed.
Yeah.
Because like Shepherd Book is very much a pious man. Is that the word? I have to pious.
Yes, pious would be.
Yeah. Marked by. Oh, look at me! I'm smart. Like marked by or showing reverence for deity and devotion to divine worship. So there's nothing. I mean, I guess we could theory craft that. Hey, like he didn't want to go anywhere near a core planet.
Yeah, again, it's one of these things. It's not explicitly stated. It just seems.
Well, we know he's not a criminal,
odd.
right?
We know he's not a criminal. It's. I mean, again, there's a first time for everything. It could have literally been, the actor had prior arrangements and needed to be written out of the episode. I am fully willing to admit that could be it. So this is.
I mean, that sort of thing drives plots, right?
It does.
They get rid of actors and actresses because they're hard to work with, and then they just get them hit by a bus.
Yep. Oh, exactly.
So,
so I understand. It's just, and if I didn't have so many questions about Book already, I would just be assuming that. So,
I'll tell you one thing. It is nice to have an episode that is not about the dynamics or relationships of like people to Mal.
Yes.
Like even in the ending, during the confrontation in the cargo part of the ship with Jayne, that wasn't Mel himself. That was Mel as a representation of the family or the crew, right?
Yeah.
So it was nice. Like, I mean, there's definitely characters I would like to see, like Book and Kaylee, but
Mm.
it very much was Jayne, River, and Simon.
Yeah.
Which it which is unfortunate because it didn't have the kind of recurring theme.
Mm.
Um, so we mentioned this before, like if they have a theme in the episode, there'll be some relationship, like Jayne to Kaylee, and then just say Mel to River and Simon to Inara, and like they'll show that theme and how it's represented in those relationships.
Yes.
But in this case, like I very much think this was Jayne's episode, even though we got a lot of information about River.
Yeah.
But it was very.
We got the academic lore around River,
Mm,
is what it is.
very yeah, so kind of missed out on that.
Yeah.
Because that's a recurring thing I've really been enjoying, like pulling out of the show.
I've really enjoyed that too. I feel like, and again, this again could go back to a very simple reason why Book wasn't there. Like again, a meta reason why Book wasn't there, why essentially Inara wasn't there, except to be the reason they were going to Ariel
Mm-hmm.
in the first place, because it was dense otherwise.
Yeah,
Like,
there was
we get
where would we have put those other relationships or thematic points?
yeah. So I, as much as Druid, I absolutely love that stuff too. This is one episode where it's like, I don't think you could have.
Yeah, I agree.
Uh, um, so let's pivot a little bit to Simon as a character here now. You're good with that?
Yeah.
I am again impressed with how badass Simon can actually be. Much like in with the when they tried to burn River,
Mm.
right? We just see that pure conviction. We see the same thing here. We're literally captured, right? And he goes, and he just stand up and is like, I'm pretty sure your orders are to keep me alive. So two options. You're answering my question or you're putting a bullet in me. Like, again, because I was much like you, like, Simon was not my favorite characters. I didn't really see him having quite that backbone. But he's shown it time and time again when push comes to shove, he stands up.
Well, I mean, like even the combat when as soon as soon as Jayne knocked over that guy
Mhm.
and was dealing with the other one, just Simon went to it. There was no hesitation there. He just was like, was he leaning on the guy's neck and didn't kill him, but knocked him out.
Interesting point about that. Because of the way they shot that scene, I rewatched that scene and the scene where the guys go into the room like 3 or 4 times because I honestly couldn't tell which one of them was alive and which one of them was dead. Like, like I had to go and it's like, okay, look at the cues in the room. What am I actually looking for? Because I'm honestly like, because I could see Simon killing someone for his sister.
Yeah.
And he'd know how to do it. I had to go back and watch it multiple times to make sure.
But only if the thing is, the caveat there is only if necessary. And he has the medical know-how that, like, I don't know about the skills, but he has the medical know-how to at least apply pressure in a way that could knock someone out.
Yeah. I could also see him, not getting off the neck in time
because of a lack of skill.
because of lack of skill.
Yeah.
Or, if you're medical and you know anything about knocking out, it's generally not as long as you think it is.
Yeah, and if
If they wanted to go with any type of realism.
well, they did that in Archer a bit. It's
Yeah.
like, I was knocked out for 5 minutes, and like, ooh, that's bad.
Yeah.
Because being knocked out for more than a couple seconds from like some type of bumper strike is actually terrible for
Yeah.
you.
So I could have seen that going either way. Yeah, it was. I think the bigger thing to point out of this is it's, again, Simon is showing you that he's a lot stronger than I'd given him credit for in the past.
Same.
And the fact that it wouldn't have surprised me if he did kill him accidentally or otherwise.
Yeah.
Is telling of that.
Well, I mean, though I agree, at least for the production standpoint, because it was not a thematic thing.
Mhm.
I don't think the writers would have done it, especially with Simon having saved somebody earlier.
Mm.
But if it was a key thematic thing, I could easily see them working that in just from a production standpoint.
Yeah.
Simon willing to expose himself to not let someone die, but to protect the people he cares about, kill someone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if they busted out an episode with that kind of theme thing, it would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. That's called interesting character writing.
Yeah. And a lack of is why I don't really watch TV anymore.
This is true.
Demographics aren't characters. A person is interesting. People are boring.
They really are. Yeah, and Simon obviously had no clue that didn't seem to have much of a clue that he was being set up in any way.
Mm-hmm.
He was praising Jayne. I think he actually saw it as a bit of a bonding moment. I'm not 100% certain if Jayne will see that. No, I think Jayne does. I think he does understand that. It's like they fought together now. That means something.
This is the thing, and this is why, like, I'm putting more credence than one would expect in my tinfoil theory, because there were signs in the last couple of episodes where Jayne was accepting Simon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Jayne is the type to be friendly towards Simon just to be polite.
God, no.
And like, he was friendly in certain ways that were accepting into like the group dynamic, into the family.
Yeah.
Maybe adversarial cousins that don't get along.
Yeah.
He
wasn't treating him differently than anyone else.
Yeah.
If that's a big thing.
So, and that's why I keep coming back to like the potential manipulation, right? But I think coming out of it, especially with how the revelation that Jayne was commanded by a certain chain. Just the revelation, like, even if it was just a writing issue, like a lack of thought into the character progression, that coming out of it, that it's resolved.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I wonder if there's just hints of both of our theories.
Well, I like your theory. I'm not.
Yeah. Again, all instinct. So
See, it lasts. It lasts. Like, even if you don't agree about it, you're just like, there's something about it that makes sense.
There's something about it that makes sense. There's things that I question about it.
Yeah,
But
same.
when you talk about like it being an instinctual thing and we're not actually realizing it, that's where it throws it off. It's like if she's trying to kick off this plan in motion to get that help, knowing she's going there, and then why she's also very against it's very against the idea of her being drugged and going there, which I can also connect, I don't know, maybe some PTSD that may or may not be there because they cut into her brain and probably did this to her dozens of times.
Well, I mean, like inside a person's brain, like there's a lot of things that conflict, right? So
Yeah.
she's scared about a thing and she doesn't know how to express it.
Yeah.
That's very clear.
Yes.
So even with my theory, so subconsciously like setting things in motion so that she can get additional help. This is why this is like the high sci-fi or the high fantasy kind of situation. It's like it's that way because of magic.
Yeah.
Because there's something ethereal that can't be explained. It's like, oh, it's because she's super smart. And like, and that's why I call it tinfoil hat. That's why I'm not saying this like super real theory that it must be. But so what do you think of the ending?
It's interesting that clearly it seems like Mal's the only person who had any inclination that Jayne did this.
Yeah.
Which is a little odd. I would expect at least Zoe to kind of have some thoughts about it, but I honestly think he did this without her involvement in any way, shape, or form. It in no way surprises me that Mal will throw someone out an airlock for his crew.
Oh yeah.
It in no way surprises me that Mal said it's like, no, you attacking my crew is no different than attacking me. I mean, we've had this discussion many times.
Yeah, you turn on any of my crew, you turn on me. And the subtext there is you're no longer my crew.
Yeah.
Because he didn't say us.
Yeah. Mal clearly pulled the same thoughts that we did about Jayne in the end. I think if Jayne hadn't said anything about the about them not wanting to know what happened, I think he would have just spaced them. No doubt in my mind around that. And I think, assuming my thoughts on this were correct, it's probably Jayne just trying to save face for himself, like not trying to break his character as he thinks the crew perceives him. And the ending would have been very different. Well, the money was too good, which is what we expect to hear Jayne say. It's one of the things that pokes a little bit of hole in my interpretation of it as well. Is I think it would have been different if he gave some sort of indication to Mal that he did think he was doing something in the best interest of the ship, not just him. But I also don't think it's in his character to do that. So it's
a lot of weird conflict there, hey?
Yeah.
I agree with you that I think Mel saw the sincerity in Jayne's plea earlier in the episode.
Yeah.
In fact, I think as a matter of family, not of status, that he was upset that like a plain threat on the ship is not being dealt with in any way.
Yeah.
In fact, like he was essentially reprimanded, though he was obviously not expressing things in a proper way.
Yeah.
Nor did he see the result of it.
Yeah.
I think Mel knows and would not keep Jayne around if Jayne didn't accept the crew as family.
Yeah.
Like, I think Mel would know that Jayne would do anything to rescue Inara, or take a bullet for Kaylee, or like drag Wash through a desert when Wash has broken legs. Not that this ever happened, but like
Yeah.
these kind of situations, right? Because
Yeah.
Jayne is, at least up until this point, reliable.
Mhm.
So I don't think Mel believed the money was too good plea.
Yeah.
I think that's what the statement Jayne was using to save face.
Yeah.
Is that what you said earlier?
Essentially,
Okay, yeah.
it was he because that's his character. It's not in his character to say that.
Yeah.
So he has to make it about the money.
Yeah.
And there's rings of that earlier. It's like, oh, the money wasn't good enough. When he said, why didn't you turn us in at this point or whatever?
Yeah.
Right. And clearly the money is good. So it's just those little pieces of conflict that it's. And again, I get that conflicted acting from Baldwin as well.
Yeah.
That, I mean, it's giving us a 5-10 minute discussion on the last 30 seconds of the scene because there's a lot there to unpack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah, so like I am 100% with you there, that to save face for his perception of self.
Yeah.
He thinks people view him in a certain way, which is gun for hire.
Yeah.
It's quite obvious that he's not that.
Yeah.
And that plea was him trying to save face to himself. But we saw that reality, who he actually was, and I think that's what saved him. So it's not simply just it's the reason why the plea to don't tell him what I did makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because that was the real Jayne showing through.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can't agree with you any harder than I am right now. But I think him showing himself in such a way is what saved him.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would have been spaced. I don't have a doubt that Mal could or has the capability to space him.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he would have spaced him.
Mm.
I could just as easily see him quietly having Jayne leave.
Yeah.
And just be like, you're no longer my crew. Next port of
Drop you
harbor,
off at
you're
the
getting
next
off.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a long walk to town.
I don't think there's too much to say about the other characters in this episode.
Not at all. Oh, there was something.
All right.
They showcased the differences between the engineering skills of Wash and Kaylee. It was exactly as I stated before, where Kaylee is more of a mechanical engineer, whereas Wash is more of an electrical engineer.
Yes.
So when they were fixing up that ship, Kaylee was definitely doing the big work, and Wash was over the circuit boards, right?
Yeah. It is just kind of nice to see that bit of a distinction with them.
Mm.
I think I did enjoy the very slight character moment we got with Kaylee while they were picking trash. It's like, oh, of course, I just wanted to go to the big mall. Ooh, shiny.
Yeah. Ooh, synchronizers.
Yeah. Like, yeah, nope, that's exactly what I expect. It's just one of those things that shows, like, yeah, she says she wants to do this stuff. She is happy as a pig in poop in that trash yard.
Well, it's the duality of her character, right?
Yeah.
Because she does like those things. She does like the floofy dresses, or at least the idea of them. But her nature is definitely mechanical.
Yeah. Yeah, it's neat. I think it's just a moment that brings back Shindig to me. The other thing that I found odd was mostly with Zoe when Simon was trying to teach them what to say.
Hmm.
And like, I mean, both Zoe and Mal have already shown themselves to at least be combat medics. So it seemed a little out of place. They didn't quite get some of the terminology. And it's like, I'm pretty sure that combat medicine would still teach you the same type of terminology Simon's trying to say here.
I'm gonna give a pass.
Hmm.
Like I see what you mean, but there is definitely a difference between combat medicine and a combat medic and like a doctor, right? Um,
Yeah.
so, so it's possible, like the difference between giving someone a painkiller and then chances are for bullet wounds they probably have a foam they spray in the wound or something. I imagine that's what they do in the future when they got
Yeah.
space cowboy guns. So
Yeah.
that's what they probably did, or like uh, when you
Tourniquet.
tie the tourniquet. There you go.
Tourniquet. Yeah.
See, I definitely would be having Jayne problems with the terminology.
Yeah, it's a minor thing. It's something that I'm mostly willing to give a pass for.
Yeah.
It's I think we happen to mention it's like, yeah, no, it's nice to see that these guys are actually able to handle wounds and such, and showing some combat medic training at the very least. That it felt a little out of place, but I get it.
Hmm.
Um, so, uh, yeah. Otherwise,
No one
yeah,
else really had like a spot besides some like having some fun.
yeah,
Uh, Overall, the episode, I always thought this was one of the weaker ones,
I
and
agree.
now I think it's probably one of the stronger ones.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how powerful the line was at the very end, um, until this watch, when I had more respect for the character and like understood what was actually going on. In full context, the whole was it uh, time for me to go to sleep again?
Hmm.
No, it's time to wake up.
Yeah.
Just so powerful, and like it's
Mhm.
probably the best acting you got out of Simon's actor so far,
Yes.
because I believed it.
Yeah.
There
I,
was concern and hope and like intelligence and skill all packaged into like a single phrase.
mhm. I- And it's amazing how many little lines there's been like that from Simon throughout. We've highlighted them multiple
Mm.
times now. Like, I know, you know, I've said this before. I'm going to say again. It's like I can't believe how much I underestimated Simon in the past.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's because he always came off as annoying. Like I always looked at him to how he's probably being perceived by Jayne.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. Uh, it's, oh, it's looking forward to seeing River wake up some.
Hmm.
Like, 'cause, yeah, up until this point, she'll happen to say the right thing to put people off, but she's not in her right head,
Yeah.
and everyone knows it. And
It's one of those things like she'll often end up saying something that is kind of it's weird and it's kind of off-putting, but it's not concerning, and it kind
mhm,
of makes you relax around her. Just like somewhere it's like she'll say something about like the anatomy of a frog.
mhm,
Um, when you're like questioning something about her, and
yeah,
I think that's a subconscious defense mechanism, like a creature changing its color or like burying itself in sand.
mhm,
And this is kind of one of the little seeds for my tinfoil hat there, like the subtle manipulations like that.
yeah,
But s- seeing her wake up is going to be very interesting because of how we've known her until now.
mhm, yeah, and yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Don't have anything else per se that I wanted to discuss. this episode. Overall gooder. And I'm glad you know what? I think like I don't overall I don't give much credit to Firefly itself. And I'm still firmly in the position like it's a pretty good first season.
Mm.
You shouldn't hold it in the same reverence as like the fan base is very, rose tinted glasses when they look at Firefly.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, I think the perfect example of the rose tinted glasses is look how much we've shit on Wash.
exactly.
No, this is no season 3 of Buffy or season 5 of Buffy. But it can. All of the groundwork is there. That there's no reason to think that it wouldn't be that.
I think it would have been greater.
I agree.
Especially if they did 4 seasons and done, which they wouldn't have. But if they had, not like Community was 7 seasons in a movie or whatever. Like 4 seasons in a movie is good, or 4 seasons into TV movies like Farscape.
Oh, so good.
So good. It's the right amount to tell a good story.
Yeah. Especially if you've got an idea of where the story's going. And
the groundwork is here. And I think overall watching this with a more analytical eye, like usually it takes away from things that I enjoy. But I think seeing a lot of the little subtleties that I missed before just as a casual viewer is making me appreciate it more. Meaning that I like it more than I did before, but I still am in the same position of how good I think it is.
and it's fair. Like, I think because I agree. Well, a lot of fan bases have rose-colored glasses all the time. This is obvious. But
except for Farscape. There's nothing wrong with Farscape.
No, Farscape is
perfect in every way.
In every way. I think, the Whedon charm is here full force. And a lot of these things that we're talking about, even though they're subtle, and people wouldn't necessarily be able to put words to it, I think that it still shines through, and it's these little beats that people are going to remember, even if they don't quite remember it, because it hits the emotions right. And I think that's a big reason why we still talk about Firefly, but we don't still talk about Dollhouse.
Well, I never watched Dollhouse, so
yeah.
Did not seem interesting.
I did because I wanted to see what happened. But again, there's a reason why we're talking about Firefly and not Dollhouse.
Is it because you think Simon Tam is hunky man meat?
Well, I mean, he's getting there.
You know what? He no longer comes off as a perv.
Yeah.
100% he came off as a perv at the beginning.
Okay. Thanks again for huddling around the second wall with us here tonight. Join us next time as we continue our discussion of Firefly. Please join the conversation in the comments, on social media, or at our Discord, where we would love to get your thoughts. And of course, if you like what we do, please share us with your friends.